Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Second Guessing with Stress, and I'm your host Garrett Williams, aka Texans commenter. Today, this is a special impromptu episode where we're joined by Seattle Seahawks insider Brian Nemhauser. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Nice to meet you, man.
Likewise, and I always do this when I have a guest. I should have asked: Is Nemhauser the correct pronunciation of your last
You
name?
nailed it. You nailed
All
it.
right.
Not an easy
Hey,
one. So you're off to a good start.
I guess I like to kind of just roll the dice a little bit, um, but yeah. So Brian, he's been a credentialed journalist covering the Seahawks for is it 15 plus years, I believe.
Well, the quick of it is I've only been credentialed for the last year. I worked in the tech industry for 26 years and did this as a side gig for about 18 years, but turned it into my full focus last year.
That's awesome. Kudos to you. And so, we talked briefly before, but I've kind of have been a fan and just started a page naturally the past couple of years, and it's been a big passion. Is that kind of a similar story for you?
Yeah, I mean, I went to school to be a sports writer, and then I saw what sports writers got paid, and decided I was going to do something else with my career, but never stopped being obsessed with sports, and so kind of picked this up on the side. It got really big during the LOB era, and probably a little bigger than I could manage given my full time job and family. But yeah, it's been great. And then last year was very happy to finally leave tech and started doing a daily show on the Seahawks, and it's kind of blown up. So yeah, it's gone really well, and now I travel with the team and go to press conferences and all that stuff. So it's been really fun.
That's awesome. Kudos to you. Maybe I'll be there one day, but until then, I'll just have to lean on people like you for your expertise. So, and I haven't mentioned, but obviously on X, he's at Hawkblogger, and he has a great website too, hawkblogger.com. He's written some great articles. He has one that I would highly encourage to go check out, previewing the matchup. You're kind of like me, like it's one, it seems like you know what you're talking about. You know a lot about our team, but you seem very analytical and in depth. Like I tend to go like way in the weeds. So I really
Yeah,
appreciated that about
no,
what your article, EPA and grades on this and different metrics. So if you want to kind of just hit some, points on that article that you want to highlight that people can encourage them to check it out.
yeah, and in fact, I literally 60 seconds before I came on here just published another article because I I don't know you, Garrett, but like I look at my fandom and my coverage as kind of a protection because there's so many years I would go into a game and I'd think, oh man, the Seahawks are going to win, and then they'd get blown out, and I'd be like, God dang it, I wish I could have anticipated this, right? So I try to, as much as I'm a fan of the team, I try to be objective and get a decent idea of how the game is going to go, just to kind of brace myself for what's coming. And I'm seeing Seahawks fans that are like, "Oh, we're going to roll over the Texans," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I see weaknesses in the Texans for sure. Almost all of them exist on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's a pretty nightmarish matchup for the Texans. We could talk about that. Certainly, eager to hear your thoughts. But you flip to the other side, and what has worked for the Seahawks? Well, offensively, they have been an absolute juggernaut with play action. I mean, they're averaging almost 15 yards per attempt on play action. The next closest team is Tampa Bay, and they're averaging 10 yards an attempt, which is also amazing. That's 5 yards difference. I mean, it's a huge, huge thing. And part of the way that's working for the Seahawks is that they are really selling the run. They're doing it effectively, even if they're not running effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And they're often doing kind of max protect in some of those play actions. They're doing two-man routes. And JSN is also going nuclear. And he's like, basically, no one's been able to guard him so far. So if you were to design a defense that would be ideal for going up against the Seahawks offense, it would involve, fantastic edge play, in particular edge rush. You would have good, disciplined linebackers coached by a linebacker who understands keys on play action, and you'd have really good cornerback play who could erase a lot of two-man routes or at least make those really difficult. And guess what? the Texans check all those boxes, and they are also the #1 team in the NFL in defending play action. So I think that there's a lot of things that make this. So that's what I kind of just wrote about was, I don't know what you all are thinking. This is not an easy matchup at all. In fact, I think that this matchup for the Seahawks offense is going to be the toughest matchup that the Seahawks face all year. So I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of think alike. So one, I respect your approach, and I kind of go through the same thing. Like you can't help that innate bias of being a fan, and you see things, and you want to tend to overweigh those and ignore the weaknesses. So I'm slowly getting to that track, but I try to do that as well. But I did a live stream last night for like an hour plus with some fans, and I dove through a lot of the same stuff you're looking at, like EPA, NFL Pro Stats, and even some of the stuff that you were talking about, like rushing inside the tackles, outside the tackles, all that stuff. So, but no, I mean, I get the same sense, like it's, I mean, obviously fan bases both sides. You got different, people believe in different stuff, but there is a majority of people. I couldn't help but notice the one thing I've noticed is people see the way the Seattle defense played against Jacksonville and then immediately extrapolate that to like, oh, it's going to be that times 10 against the Texans. So I've kind of been trying to like, show that, hey, that's not necessarily true. But I agree too. Like, there's been a lot of focus, as there should be, on the Seattle defense versus the Texans offense. But no one's talking about the Texans defense against the Seattle's offense. It's the same, if not worse, of a matchup. So I think it's a great matchup. I think both defenses definitely have the advantage. And it's two defensive-minded head coaches who want to run the ball and who want to run play action. They want to hold on to the ball, play field position, don't turn the ball over. So this could be an ugly game to many fans. I know people don't want to see that, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think it'll be a great game. But yeah, I've noticed, Seahawks fans, I try not to get into too many arguments and be logical, but some fans kind of bring me in sometimes where it sounds like it's a logical convo at first. And then they're like, oh, we're going to beat your ass. I'm like, no, like that's not, I'm just trying to talk ball here. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I know there are factors on both sides you have to factor in, strength of schedule. And a big one for me is injuries. So I was definitely wanted to ask you about that, y'all's defense has been depleted. Can you kind of give us some updates on who's been hurt and maybe games that affected and their health coming back, what you think projecting coming into the matchup?
Yeah. It's probably the biggest question heading into this one. The Seahawks have been missing 3 of what I would consider 6 secondary starters, right? Now, I know you don't play 6 players all the time, but the Seahawks play a big nickel and they play a little nickel, or a typical nickel, right? Devin Witherspoon, when they're playing normal nickel, tends to be their nickel corner. He has been out. He's only played 1 healthy game all year. That was week 1. He's been out for a while, has had a bruised MCL, and we're going to find out today whether or not he practices, because the Seahawks moved back all of their schedule one day. So Thursday is Wednesday, Friday is Thursday, and so forth. So 4:00 Pacific time today, we'll find out about that. And then Julian Love, who is kind of the glue of that secondary, really does everything well and makes sure that they're in the right situation. He has been out for a number of games as well. So we'll find out. He's had a groin, more soft tissue stuff with him. So we'll find out if he's ready or not as well. And then also, last game they were without Tariq Woolen, who had a concussion. That one's a lot more complicated. There's some questions about his position on this team in general, but he is, by all like advanced metrics, still one of the best cover corners in football. He just has some unfortunate mistakes that tend to be remembered by a lot of Seahawks fans. So those are the 3 that were out last week. They just got back Nick Eamon-Worry, their top pick in the 2nd round. They traded up for, and he plays their big nickel, and he's a guy that they're comfortable playing even against 11 personnel. So he is a real huge piece for that team. And what has not been seen by anybody, Seahawks fans or otherwise, is Nick Eamon-Worry and Devin Witherspoon both available in the same game, because Nick Eamon-Worry got hurt in the first 2 snaps against San Francisco and was out until a couple weeks ago. So there's a whole package that Mike McDonald has that involves both of those guys. and makes it very hard for offenses to key on which of those guys is coming on a blitz, which of those guys is going into coverage. They're a really unique pairing, as both guys can play inside and both guys can play the run and both guys can rush the passer. So if Witherspoon's available, that's a really, really big impact to the game plan this week.
Okay, yeah, because I, obviously was wondering about that, and I didn't realize that Witherspoon was playing the nickel, so he's not playing outside. And then, what would this package be? Because I've heard fans tell me that, like, well, Witherspoon and Eman Worry, but I was like, he's just an outside corner. Now that I realize he's a nickel, like, I guess they would basically have them, like, if it was considered a 4-4, they'd be the two outside
Yeah,
backers
the way that
essentially.
yeah, the way that it's been working is when they're in standard nickel, let's call it, Devin Witherspoon is the nickel player, and that's what he's played primarily in his career, here, at least in Seattle. And then you have Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe as your outside corners in that situation. When you go to big nickel, then you have Nicky Manwari playing the nickel spot, and you have Devin Witherspoon and Josh Jobe, who's taken beat Tariq Woolen on the depth chart. Those guys play outside corner. So those are kind of the different alignments. But one of the things that, just getting back to what I was saying, Devin Witherspoon broke in with a lot of effectiveness as he does everything well, but he's a really effective blitzer, times it well, disguises it well. And then last year, teams just kind of like knew to slide protection wherever he was, and it made him kind of a less valuable pass rusher. When you have Nicky Manwari on one side of the field and you have Devin Witherspoon on the other side of the field, and both of them are excellent at getting to the passer, it gives Mike McDonald a lot more options about how to deploy them.
And so that would probably be something that you would see in known passing down situations, would be my assumption, second and long, third and long. Because my instant thought would be, okay, you got, two two nickel corners out there, just run the ball would be my assumption. But I mean, Eman Worry, to me, I know y'all call him like Kyle Hamilton, Mike McDonald's new Kyle Hamilton. To me, he's like our Jalen Petrie, who's our nickel corner, and people look at him as a corner, but they're looking at him in the wrong lens. He's really the third linebacker in our defense and a very fast one. And if you look at him in that lens, he's elite as far as coverage goes. So just talk more about Nick Emanwari. He was a guy that I wanted the Texans to draft until they got CJ Garner-Johnson, which turns out, was not a great situation. So
Yeah.
talk more about him and his versatility and how he's being used.
Yeah, I met Nick at the combine this year and asked him, a number of questions. He actually had the same coach in college as position coach in college as Cam Chancellor did, and there's some similarities in terms of physical stature, not necessarily athleticism, as Nick is quite an athlete. He's literally the most athletic safety prospect there's ever been in football. And he told me at 6'3", 220 plus, he was going to run in the 4.3s the next day. And I literally, people laughed, and then he did it. And it was electric. And he jumped 42 inches as well. I mean, he's an unreal athlete. And so you get him near the line of scrimmage. Mike McDonald's got a very specific role for him. And he is long, he is fast, and he's a really good tackler. And so you see this against Jacksonville last week, all those things come into play. He was able to rush the passer effectively, force some incompletions. He was able to string out some screen passes, get some tackles for loss. He made some just really important tackles. Mike McDonald calls it hidden yardage that he prevented. And so he's off to a really good start. He's also a rookie. It's also a very complex defense. And the touchdown that Jacksonville scored early with Brian Thomas Jr. on a fake screen, I don't have confirmation, but I think it's very, very likely. I know for a fact it was a miscommunication on what coverage they were supposed to be in on that side of the field. So Nicky Manwari and Shaquille Griffin, who was playing last week due to injury for others,
Former Texan
were in the
right
wrong.
There, huh?
They were in the wrong coverage. And I'm guessing Nicky Manwari probably either didn't pick up the thing to relay to Shaquille Griffin or relay the wrong information, because rookies are going to do that. So there is kind of an up and down there, but the potential, I mean, he is a he is a weapon that I think most defensive coordinators would love to have in their arsenal.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned like, the height, weight, and speed is just he's a unicorn. And then the way Mike McDonald is using him, like I saw like the clips from the all 22 where he's just, at the line of scrimmage and dropping back 8, 10 yards in certain zones or flats. So, but that seems to be, let's talk a little bit about Mike McDonald, his defense. I think he's elite, but I've had some fans basically say like, he's just so smart and so innovative that y'all guys shouldn't even show up. Like, I think he is really good, but obviously my understanding, he was at Baltimore. There is some history with Stroud. He played him his first ever game of his career, and then again in the divisional round. Didn't do necessarily great in either. And then obviously there is a little bit of carryover. Zach Orr is the current defensive coordinator for the Ravens, who runs a similar scheme. Obviously, he's no Mike McDonald. Obviously, the personnel is different. They've been banged up. But just kind of go through those little talking points. And then my understanding is it's a 3-4 base defense, and you try to only rush 4, but you get creative with it. And when you do rush 4, you do a lot of stunts and twists.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first off, you tell me if I'm crazy, but I kind of throw out the Texans game against Baltimore. I mean, that was kind of the Texans game against JV. Like there was just nobody on the field for the Ravens, and credit to the Texans for making it look that way, because it could have been close. Like the Rams, now the Rams had it going against a few more of their starters, but still, that game doesn't tell me much, I don't think. But to your point, Mike McDonald, really smart. I will say he's had some games where he's gotten outcoached. Matt LaFleur of Green Bay has had some really nice moments against him. I thought that Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago really got him on a number of places. Now they were missing a lot of starters, but still he was got on that day. But what you're going to see is a 3-4 defense. You're going to see, in general, a 4-man rush. And the key thing for Mike McDonald is you don't know who the 4 men are going to be. And he is excellent at disguise. He's excellent at disguising coverages, mixing coverages. You're going to see a team that, if you look at their coverage rates, it's like, 25%, 25%. He just mixes it up. You're not going to be able to get and trust the look you're going to get. And what they're able to do is they blitz at one of the lowest rates in the NFL, but their pressure rate and their sacks are toward the top. They have, if not the best defensive line collectively in the NFL, I almost certainly think they have the best interior defensive line in the NFL, with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, which you guys know down there in Texas, Jaron Reed as well, all really effective interior players. And then DeMarcus Lawrence, you also know down there in Texas, can shrink inside. So they'll move him inside. And actually you saw a lot of some creative stuff going on last week against Jacksonville, where they would put Leonard Williams, they put the big guys, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, on the edge out at like 5 tech. And then they'd have Mafe.
These are known passing downs, or
they can be. They were mixed downs, but generally known passing downs. They would put them on the outside, and they'd put the DeMarcus Lawrence inside, Mafe inside. They'd run some different twists and stunts. They do a lot of games, so a lot of their pass rush is predicated on stunts and twists and things of that nature. They have not gotten as much pure edge rush, where you just line up someone on the edge and they run around. That's not typically how they've been doing it. And then they have a really good second level with Ernest Jones and at linebacker. And then their secondary has been playing with like a lot of backups. But when healthy, they're in the top 10 for sure, probably top 5 in terms of secondary talent in the NFL. So yeah, they've got coverage, they've got pass rush, they can do 4-man pass rush effectively. And when they do blitz, they're the most effective blitzing team in the NFL. And I will say this, when I looked at this matchup with Houston, the key thing is like the Texans running backs, even the tight ends, have really struggled in picking up pass pro.
I've been calling that out. People have been falsely putting blame on the O-line when it's tight ends and running backs that are the lion's share.
It is the number 1 percentage team in the NFL of allowing pressure from positions that are not offensive linemen. I think 22% of their pressures are coming from non-offensive linemen. And so Mike McDonald is third in the league in creating unblocked pressures. I think that's a really nightmare thing if I'm a Texans fan. And I think the left side of the Texans offensive line is something I would not trust. I'm not a big Ariante Ursary fan. I was not a big fan of him in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. I haven't been a big fan since. So I think that's where the Seahawks would probably try to get Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, like to create nightmares over on that side of the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's all great insight. I mean, and Ursary too. I mean, obviously he's a rookie and he's taking his lumps like against Jacksonville. Josh Hines Allen, welcome to the league, and he's played better. But again, talent, of the opposition does matter. So we're looking to see where he's at. But also too, it seems like you guys create these pressures through these games, and simulated pressures and all this stuff. Time to throw seems to be a big talking point. Like there's also that combined with the confusion for the quarterbacks. Is that something that's kind of overblown, or is that a big aspect of it too? Or is it mostly just, hey, guys getting beat up front?
It's both. It is both. I think that Mike McDonald's really good at sim pressures. He came up as his internship in Baltimore, and when he was a position coach, he was asked to look at third down in particular. And so he studied third down defensive schemes from all across the years, back to like Jim Johnson with the Eagles, and who's like one of the grandfathers of sim pressure and all that kind of stuff. Rex Ryan, like he got a lot of insights from other, aggressive defensive coordinators. And he's kind of come up with a scheme where it fits his persona, which is I want to be super aggressive and I also want to be totally conservative at the same time.
Smart.
That's kind of, he's trying to get the best of both worlds. And now I would say he's got better talent to do it with than he even had in Baltimore on the line. Like Nande Mbike is great. I don't think he's Leonard Williams. Their edge rush when they had Jadeveon Clowney and it wasn't Judon. Who was it? It was doesn't matter. It was the other veteran. Not great. I think Mafe, Derek Hall, who will be out for this game most likely, I think are better. DeMarcus Lawrence has been playing pretty well. And Uchenna Nwosu is a guy that probably most people don't know, but he's only been back a couple of games. Since he's been back, since Arizona game, he's got 4 sacks. The only guys in the NFL that have more sacks in that time frame are Nick Bonito, who has 5, and Thule over there on the Chargers. So he's a really excellent game runner. And Byron Murphy has just gotten more chances. People think he made some big sophomore leap. He didn't. He made some improvements for sure, but it's mainly he's just getting more pass rush opportunities. Last year, he barely got any.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. I talk about that with the edge rushers for Will and Daniil. People are like, why they have no sacks? Well, like teams are, before the game even starts, they're game planning to take them out of the game. Like teams, like every team we've played, from the Rams to the Bucks to the Jags, it's clear right out the gate they are not letting them throw deep. It's quick game screens. So I would imagine it's probably similar for the Seahawks on offense. And like you mentioned too, when I dove in last night, it seemed like you highlighted that their rushing offense isn't great, but their play action's elite. It's like this annoying thing for a fan, but it is justified by them. Hey, we're going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And it's really just setting up that deep shot. Is that kind of how the offense feels?
It is. And I've talked to some of the coaches and the players, and they acknowledge some of it as here's the thing. The Seahawks face the highest percentage of stacked boxes of any offense in the NFL. And it's not because their run game is so great. It's because they play a lot of 12, a lot of 21 personnel. They pull an extra defender down. And then they're able to pass over it. So in some ways, you're running into a tough situation with a stacked box. Mike McDonald, I just talked to him on Monday about this, and he's like, yeah, but outside zone is predicated on being able to work even against 8 defenders in the box, and we've got to be able to do that. We've got to be better at it. So they're not giving up on being good at running the football. But to your point, more important than being good at running the football is committing to it. And I know D'Amico Ryans has talked about this as well for the Houston offense. you got to do it, and you've got to make sure it looks exactly like the pass that you're going to run. And I think the Seahawks are doing that at a really elite level. And then you add into it Sam Darnold, who's performing and running it at an elite level, and JSN, who is the best receiver in football this year. Like he just is. And you've got something going. Now, in this game, I am really curious because the Texans, one of their few weaknesses on defense is defending the outside zone and defending runs outside the tackles. They're not among the best at doing that. And so I've been kind of waiting for which is the game where a team actually takes away some of the early down play action, and that allows Seattle to finally have maybe a more effective run game. So it could flip the script in this one.
That would be my guess because D'Amico, I know they're really good at limiting explosives, and that's this whole thing is we're not going to let you beat us deep. And the times that we had gotten beat this deep this year, like at least 3 of them were all on CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was miscommunicating or playing out of the defense. So I guarantee you their number one game plan will be to take JSN deep shots out of the game, whether that's shadowing with Stingley or I would still shade safety help over the top on him. And I would let you guys, get the 3, 4, 5 yards a rush underneath. So yeah, that will be interesting to see. And I guess back on the other side, real quick on the run game too. You see a lot about the Seahawks run defense, but when I was like diving in with NFL Pro with various stats, like it was kind of like a mixed picture. Like the defense is ranked high, but then certain metrics, the rush defense, it kind of gave me like a muddied picture where it wasn't as good as you thought. And then I dove into like, okay, like on the flip side of what you said about Texans not being as great against outside versus inside. It's the same for the Seahawks. I feel like y'all played almost all outside zone teams. Like I even like went into PFF and went into all the splits. And most of the teams y'all played have ran more zone than gap. And even then some of those zone or inside zone too. But so is that part of it as well? Like for the Seahawks defense, what is the rush defense? Is it as good as most people think, or is it as bad as what the stats say? Is it in between?
It's a great question. I'd be interested in hearing where the bad is because the rush defense has been pretty elite. I would put it in the debate for being the best run defense in the NFL. And part of why that's the case is they are running a light box at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Mike McDonald's able to he doesn't blitz and he runs a light box so that he can have as many guys in coverage as possible, right? And they are of the teams that top 5 teams that run a light box anywhere close to as often as the Seahawks. The Seahawks are the only team that has a yards per carry below 4.4, and they're at like 3.3. And they're the only one that has a negative EPA per rush of those teams. So they've been able to get away with being a light box and being a really, really tough run defense. The only team that's gone over 100 yards rushing was the 49ers, and they did it with just a ton of carries. They only averaged like 3.1 yards a carry. They still were not able to run the ball effectively. So I have not seen the weakness in the run defense. I agree with you wholeheartedly, though. The gap scheme is something that caught my eye with the Texans. It's why, for me, as someone who follows the Seahawks, I see a lot of similarities between the Texans and the Rams, and what the Rams will represent in terms of a great edge rush, a really good receiver, good quarterback, and gap scheme. There's a lot of these things that they're kind of between those two teams are similar.
Yeah, and so now I'm trying to while I'm listening to you, but I'm trying to reference what I was looking at last night. Hopefully I'm not misrepresenting what I said, but there was something that I saw. I don't know exactly, and if we run out of time, I can tell you outside, just for curiosity. But there was something that I saw that didn't match up. I was like, wait, I thought this, but no, I mean that is the outside is the rush defense is great, so it'll be a good matchup. And to me, I don't know if you think too. I guess we'll end with this, but it projects to be potentially a boring game for fans where both teams are defensive-minded head coaches, both committed to the run, whether it works or not. And it's going to be whoever breaks first, or it's going to be like that the whole game. But if one team gets a lead and one team kind of abandons their game plan and tries to get too aggressive, is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see a 13-10 kind of game for sure. That's what this profiles to be. I think that the Texans need to be able to run the ball. I think it's not just enough to commit to it. I think they need to be somewhat effective with it, and I'm questioning whether they're going to be able to do that. If the Texans can't run the ball, if they're going to be held to like 70, 75, 80 yards on the ground,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be really hard for them to put up points. I think it's going to be very hard for them to get into the end zone. Um, and then on the Seahawks side, when they have the ball, I think there's a high potential for turnovers. That Sam Darnold will be forced to make some tight window throws with more pressure than he has, and might make some decisions that have people saying, see, it's Sam Darnold's back to being Sam Darnold. I can see that happening for sure. I also, though, think that the Seahawks probably only need to get them a couple of times with an explosive here or there. And if
Mhm.
the Seahawks are actually able to run the ball and they're into third and manageable, then I think the Seahawks are not going to like blow them out, but I think that they will win with some comfort. But if you're talking about third and long, the Seahawks are dead last in the NFL in converting third and 7+. So, they don't want to live in that. They got away with it a little bit against Jacksonville, hit some explosives, but generally speaking, that is not the way this offense is built to run. So I think the run game is going to be a key part on both sides of this one, and I think it's going to be popcorn football watching. Whether Kubiak, Sam Darnold, and JSN are able to beat D'Amico and Stingley and this Texans pass rush. So I think it's a really really intriguing matchup. I think it could go either way. I think the Seahawks are rightly favored. I think there's a little bit more of an advantage on their side of the ball when they have it than the other. I'd say this: I think the Seahawks defense has a bigger advantage than the Texans defense, but it's close. It's definitely close.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. It's like a lot of parallels, and like you just highlighted, like both teams want to do the same thing. And you mentioned the Seahawks struggle on third and long. We struggle on third and long. Like us running the ball is really just to keep us out of third and long to be able to now call pass plays where you can't just get creative. Is really what they're trying to do. It's just it's boring and annoying, but it's true. So, but Brian, I know you got other stuff to do. I'm sure you're going to practice here in a little bit. But I really appreciate your time. And if you don't follow him on X, at Hawkblogger, he'll be providing updates throughout the week, as well as his website. He just published a new article, which I can't wait to read myself. Anything else you want to add before we sign off here, Brian?
No, appreciate it, and should be an interesting game. So let's hope it's a good one, and I wish you guys luck the rest of the year.
I appreciate that, and likewise, I'll end it here, and we can say our goodbyes after. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you.